This is a question I get asked a lot, and it's something that I find based on people's background and exposure and education, it can be a very triggering topic, and we have to ask why. And I try and peel back the layers because a lot of folks have knee-jerk responses to a lot of things done to horses. And I think there is a difference when we stop and we first say, am I educating the horse before I fill in the blank? Whether it's teaching the horse to tie and stand, whether it's teaching the horse to load, cross water, move livestock, pony, be in a herd setting, whatever it might be, we need to first preface everything with what are the skills I have taught the horse to be successful in the scenario I'm going to put that horse in. So when it comes to things like patience pulls, I find the mainstream general approach is basically let the animal exhaust itself until it quits fighting, which kind of goes back to, we'll say, the traditional concept of breaking the horse, breaking the resistance, breaking the dramatic behavior until the horse learns to comply and be obedient and tolerate what is asked of him. So there is a difference if you take a horse who is defensive towards human in the first place, defensive towards human communication, spatially and physically. If you take a horse who is defensive towards physical pressure in how you're communicating, meaning they don't lead well, they don't understand how to soften or adapt to pressure created with a lead rope or a rein or whatever it is that you might be using that is physically connected to them, and you just randomly tie them out to a solid object and hope that they don't walk themselves to death or dig too big of a hole in whatever meltdown, tantrums, resistance, fear, defensiveness you might trigger. Do I agree with patience pulls in that environment? Not at all. Do I agree and think it is a life-saving skill in the sense that the horse has a better chance of surviving the human world and all of the humans he may encounter in the future, whether or not you are part of his life? Do I think that it is incredibly important that horses know how to tie? 110%. And so we have to say, okay, so what are the skills that the horse would need to have in order to tie him where he doesn't have fear and he doesn't have defensiveness? And let's break that down. And instead of focusing on, let's see how long I can tie my horse out for, we set him up for success by giving him the needed education in the first place. And then we start to incrementally present his learning to mentally wait, to physically stand softly for longer periods of time with less support from the human until eventually he can hang out tied wherever it might be, whether it's to the horse trailer, whether it's to the cross ties, whether it's to the patience pole, and anything in between. So do I think, as with most things in the horse world, that one can weaponize the patience pole? 110%. Do I think if we prepare the horse with the skill set and addressing how he feels about pressure, in addressing any of his counter offers and maybe defensive behaviors towards how pressure has been presented in the communication from the human, being able to be mentally directable, being able to help that horse let go of whatever thought or anticipation, being able to help that horse let go of physical tension, and then we tie him out in incremental, we'll say, building blocks of longer and longer periods of time, it can be a tool. But the reality is most people don't want to put in the effort to truly educate a horse. And so they find lots of shortcuts and workarounds. You can go on all social media platforms and you will find a million workarounds because it is not convenient to the human to take the time, however long it takes, to educate the horse, to learn how to learn, to have the skills that apply to everything that we're going to ask of him in the future. And so instead, we create these shortcuts, and then they become weaponized. The round pen has become weaponized. You watch trailer loading has become weaponized. Using a flag has become weaponized. Ponying has become weaponized. Snubbing a horse off to a post has become weaponized. There's all these different things that you see, and it's really out of how it works for the human's time frame with little to no consequence as far as you may be teaching the horse to quit resisting, you may be teaching the horse to comply, but what else are you teaching that horse in their future responses to the human, in their future responses to the unfamiliar, in their future responses to triggering or unexpected moments, are you giving the horse the skills to be available to your communication, to be thinking, searching, adaptable, reasonable, and willing if you haven't practiced something before, if something unexpected comes up in their world? And this is where, again, for society and convenience, a lot of people are, I will say, training for the moment, training for the task, without having the perspective of short and long term, and asking, am I building the skill set so that as I teach my horse the skills of how to stand and tie quietly, it is the same skills to how to ground tie if I'm tacking him up. It's the same skills to how to stand and wait as I mount. Or if I'm in the middle of wherever in the mountains and I need to dismount, I can just drop the reins and my horse can stand and wait for me. Or if I need to ask my horse to stand, even if the other horses are moving off. It's all connected. But unfortunately for a lot of folks, they really fixate on the moment and the task. I'm from a clinic where we literally talked about this. The gal had mules, and a professional, well-known trainer had told her to tie out one of her mules, and by the time she got to day 3 of that mule being tied out, and she's calling this trainer going, this doesn't feel good. I'm not really sure what's going on, but my mule has not quit. By the time they untied the mule, his mind was completely blown. And to undo that trauma and damage because there wasn't a preparation, because there was the general attitude, especially from the professional who's saying, this is what it takes, this is what you have to do. Yeah, they taught that mule a lesson, but unfortunately, the lesson that the horse learned versus the one the human was trying to teach was very different.